Hi guys, Coach Fens here from FTP Training. This week we're going to chat about CTL. A lot of athletes, again my coaches reflect this to me and pass this on to me, as a lot of their athletes and my athletes get quite fixated on CTL. You know, you see that pro riders have these huge chronic training loads, and obviously they're pro riders, so they're the best. So surely having a high CTL is the most important thing to become a professional and to be the best you can be. But that isn't really the true picture. Remember that what we're doing with CTL is trying to measure our accumulative load and track our accumulative load. And with certain other measurements, we can quantify fatigue as well as fitness and track our fitness. And we can also look at our acute load, things that we're doing in that's affecting us daily. So a tour athlete or grand tour athlete may have CTLs I've seen as high as 180 after a grand tour. Okay, 180 CTL. That's huge. When riding 24 hours, I was riding at around 150 CTL. But of course, you're doing massive hours of training. And remember that CTL is not made up the same way for everybody and by doing the same exercise. Let me explain and expand upon that. CTL is basically our way of tracking load over time, okay? And that's made up of our accumulative 42-day rolling average of T-score. T-score is our daily load score. Okay, so, and how is that ascertained? So that's ascertained by, if for instance you went out and did an hour time trial maximum, then you would score 100 T-score points. Okay, but you could score 100 T-score points by going out and doing a 2 hours ride much easier. How are you going to feel after doing those two different intensities or two different types of trying to get a T-score of 100? You're going to feel very, very different. You know, doing a 2 hour easier ride, you're going to come back and feel fresh as a daisy. You do a 1 hour time trial, you're going to feel absolutely smashed. And you're probably going to need a day off or a very easy recovery day the next day. You score 100 T-score points doing 2 hours easy, you might be able to go out the next day and do another 100. So you can see straight away that the athlete that just does 2 hours every day easy, scoring 100 T-score points, well, relatively easy, compared to a time trial, they're going to get to the end of a 42-day rolling average with a very different CTL, but not necessarily the same level of condition and fitness, because the guy who's done the time trials, 3 time trials a week, could be far better and in far better condition than the athlete that's just done 2 hours every day for the month or for the 42 days. So you can see straight away that CTL is not derived in the same way for every athlete. So if you're time crunched, for instance, and you only have 9 to 10 hours, 6 to 10 hours, 6 hours a week to train, we're going to have to up the intensity within your training to be able to continually push the development of CTL and your load. But there comes a finite point there where we can't train any harder and we haven't got any more hours, and we will reach a limit at where your CTL can be. For some that might be 50, 60, 70, 80 CTL, okay? And that's really limited by time and the intensity that we can push to develop that, to get higher T-score points each day in our training. But CTL is our ability to go day to day, to back up. It really highlights our overall fitness and ability to back up our session the next day and the next day. Because obviously it can be derived, a big CTL can be derived by riding every day for longer hours quite easily. So for a Grand Tour rider, they need to have that. They need to have the ability to back up day to day. They're doing 3-week tours. And therefore going in with very low CTL for an athlete riding a Grand Tour could mean they ride into fitness in the final week. And for most of them it would, because they have a historical load in their legs which is far greater than the average rider. So often they do ride themselves in. But it would mean that they would have definitely a huge negative training stress balance early part of the tour. and maybe they don't feel quite as great until their body responds and adapts to that load through the tour, and they become stronger in the 3rd week. For most athletes, what would happen if you were thrown into that situation is you would just go into a big hole, and you get into a state of overreaching, and in long-term effects, overtraining. But we don't need to ride grand tours. We don't need to ride 180, 220 kilometres every day for 21 days. That's not what a normal athlete needs to do. And therefore, is CTL, a high CTL, necessarily vitally important? Okay, and again, as a coach, I like to see an athlete have as high a CTL as they can, because it reflects a consistency in training, and it reflects the ability to handle that load. And it also means generally with a slightly higher CTL, we can push that little bit harder with slightly more training, slightly harder training, and you can recover from it. But it's not vital, okay? So don't get hung up on CTL, because you can perform very, very well, especially in masters racing, one-day racing, etc., with a very low CTL. But with specific training optimised for your particular discipline. You know, I've had riders win podiums at 24-hour races with CTLs of 80. It's a one-day event, and we'd given them some big days in that training, closer to the event, to adapt specifically for it, and they were very fit. They were in great condition. They just couldn't have a CTL of 150 because they didn't have the time to do it, but their performance was still good. So look, remember, don't get hung up on CTL. It's not derived in the same way. Chat with your coach about it. If your mates are saying, yeah, but my CTL's 120 and you're only at 60, you're rubbish. Don't get hung up on that, because you might think, well, my coach isn't giving me the right training. He's not doing the right thing. It's not the case. Have a chat with them. There's always a plan, and it's always optimized for you to get your very best out of yourself, and to hopefully create improvements over time. Okay, so remember that it's one thing that a lot of people ask us about, and it's something that's vitally important to get a grip of and understanding of. All right, guys, I hope that helps, and I hope to catch you out on the road or trail. See you later. Bye bye.